Hi, and welcome to Women of COBOL, hosted by Tech Channel. I'm your host, Misty Decker, and today I am pleased to be joined by two amazing women of COBOL. We're going to chat about and getting young people involved and how to help them find really prosperous COBOL careers. So first, let me introduce Dr. Gina Bullock. She is a professor at North Carolina A&T, and she also leads the mainframe program there, which includes COBOL. So I have a long relationship with Gina and helping her reach her students. And so I can't wait to hear what you have to say on this topic. Hi, Gina. Welcome.
Hey.
And we also have Melissa Christie. She is a recent graduate of Georgian College, now working in her tech career, not in COBOL, but that's okay. We'll find a spot for her. And I invited her here today because she won the 2020 Master the Mainframe contest with a final project that she chose to write in COBOL. So I thought this would be a fun conversation for these two ladies who really haven't had a chance to get to know each other, explore the of a professor and the perspective of a student. How do we do this? How do we get people interested in COBOL and start building up that pipeline of skills? So how about if I kick the conversation off, right? Let's just start with why. Why is this important? Why is it important to teach COBOL? Gina, you jump in on this one to start us
All
off.
right. It's important to teach COBOL because I was looking at the numbers of women in the area and the field, and I was also looking at the history of COBOL. Even though that some people say is obsolete, some people say that is no longer going to be in existence, and why do we need it? And some companies have left the area of using the mainframes on the COBOL, using COBOL on mainframes. But what they realize is the costs associated with it, the value of security. No one system can handle all the computerized information and store all the information like the mainframe and using COBOL. And one thing so great about it, and I see it is never going to change, is I see the great changes that they're trying to do modernization on it is wonderful. But one thing about it is backwards compatible. So I can use it on any mainframe system, the legacy on down to the new. And it's straightforward. It's easy to read. It's English.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I learned about it when you're teaching the students, it's a little different because they're so used to learning object-oriented programming. When we look at COBOL, it's just straight talking to you, like I'm going to just talk to you today. And so it's not pretty, it's not cute, but when it comes to transactions and storing data and holding your data, I don't care how cute it looks. It's the best for security.
I love that. It's not a fashion statement, right?
Yes, it's not a bad thing.
It's
Holding my
about what
money
it can do.
together.
COBOL also runs on distributed systems. I mean, that's why COBOL was created, is so that it was the first programming language that was not specific to a particular hardware architecture. So it was created specifically to run on multiple platforms. And at Micro Focus, that's one of the things that we do a lot of is COBOL on distributed or Linux or other platforms. Vast amounts of COBOL still runs on laptops and servers in the corner of somebody's office somewhere. Melissa, you did get to learn a little bit of this what kind of did you get away about? Why were you interested in learning it and growing your skills in that?
There's this great kind of draw with COBOL where, like Gina said, it's incredibly readable. It's a straightforward procedural language, and it never feels like complex beyond your scope. Even as a new student coming into it, you see it and you're like, oh, I get this. this is really clear. I know exactly what's going on. And I was one of those students who learned object-oriented programming via Java, which is the main focus of my schooling. You know, there are 3 levels of Java they make you go through, and it's so much, it's so verbose. And when I learned COBOL, I was like, I wonder if I can try and do some of those complex things in COBOL. And it really kind of clears things up when you can see them, how they function in that procedural way, in that really clear English-like language.
Yeah, I get that point. It is very interesting how the language is different, you know, which makes me ask you a question, Melissa, if you don't mind. I know that you ended up getting a different tech job that wasn't COBOL related, but did you learn anything from COBOL that you find, or from your experience in learning this technology, that you're leveraging in a non-COBOL job? Is there value to that?
I think COBOL helped me be a better programmer. Think about things in a more in a kind of grouped fashion, where you can really break down problems a lot easier, because you know, the straightforward thinking you have in COBOL. Nowadays, I do some programming in my job, but not a ton. And I feel like my experience with the mainframe and with just that sort of stuff in general kind of gives me an advantage with looking at legacy systems, because we do deal with legacy systems, because I work for a company that does X-ray machines and X-ray software, and so some people keep those machines for 25 to 30 years.
Wow. Yeah, there is a different attitude when it what started us off with is backward compatibility and making sure that it lasts. You know, you're not writing a website that, you know, you're going to have to update and completely replace a year or two from now. You're writing critical software that is going to be around for a long time. And I think there is a mindset. You know, Gina, do you see that with your students? Does from the beginning to the end of your program, does it change the way they think about things just in general, not outside of the technology?
It does, because if you think about when you do object oriented programming, you look at the different aspects of the different programs in programming language, and you finally learn that you have a language that you don't have to worry, like you just mentioned, Misty, that the change, you don't have to go back. And if you make one change, that is going to affect the whole system. And looking at how they code now, and it's a little different. They look at in Java, you can program, but you want to make sure that it's going to be sustainable. If I add something or I take something away, will it still function on all systems? And that's something that the students wasn't looking at before. They were just trying to get it done. And then they understand it's rules, it's strict. You have to do it this way. And it brought about some structure in a programming. I think in you have the other languages and you can appreciate them, because, you know, COBOL works with different languages, and it does work with Java. So it's not like it's in some kind of box by itself, but it teaches people to understand that when you're writing code, sometimes you need to make sure that you put in some more adaptive changes into your coding, because you got to think about when changes occur. And that's the biggest thing that I see with the students now. They're eager about it. And I do have a question for you, Melissa, because, you know, I ask my students all the time, and they come up with the funniest things. But do you think that COBOL is for every student to learn? Is that something that every student should learn? And let's even take it there, because you're a woman And it's good to see all the women on this line today. Let's just even change it up a little bit. Do you think that as a woman, COBOL was something that will be significant for all women to learn? Because if you look at the percentages, is 20%. The numbers has increased for women in the area of this field, but we still have a lack of African American women, the diversity. So, as a woman as whole, how did you feel? And do you think the students who were women felt the same way, or is COBOL the way to go, or is it something that?
I think historically, just because if you look into the history of COBOL and those who are involved, it feels very like, oh look, COBOL was developed by women, and so here we have something where lots of the other languages. If you look at a lot of the other languages, it's so male dominated, and then you have COBOL over here, and sometimes people have that fear, oh, I'm not going to get this, but COBOL has a great like straightforward uptake. And so I think for a lot of unfortunately my program was also very male saturated, so I think there were only like 4 or 5 of us who were women, and so a lot of us really took to it in the course. I had a mandatory mainstream class, and then also an optional COBOL class, which I took along with I think 3 other female students, and then the rest were men. But we all kind of felt, like it wasn't an intimidating space anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that point about how COBOL started out as being created by women, because I think in the design of the language, you can see what, women historically think more about people than the technology. And COBOL was designed with people in mind. They wanted it to be accessible to anyone with little training. I've read that COBOL is one of the fastest languages to learn to just start on. It takes a long time to be really, really proficient with it, because, a lot of those other languages have a lot of shortcuts built into it, which makes it take longer to learn. But COBOL was designed with accessibility in mind and readability, so that anyone can pick up your code and understand what it was doing. And a lot of that came from Grace Hopper, right? And she just did that because she really looked at the environment that the language and those applications were going to be in from a people perspective, in addition to the technology perspective. And I think that's something that we can bring to this space, and that COBOL brings.
Yeah, it has great, it has a very like kind of a shallow learning curve, and then this great complexity that you can take for it. And it has this like we say, that kind of backwards compatibility with it. Like I'm at the point in my COBOL learning journey where I'm looking at other people's code to kind of learn from. And I'm looking at code, that was written in the 80s for a much older machine. And I can run it on a mainframe emulator that I have in my on my system here, and it works. It's a completely modern computer running on a modern terminal emulator.
Yeah,
it works just the same. It hasn't changed at all. And I don't have to do anything special with it. And I think that's one of the really kind of beautiful things about COBOL.
Yeah.
And one thing I did do with the students, because everybody is used to running it on IDs, and we use the major IDs, and we love Eclipse. And for me, my background is in computer science, so I'm a software engineering type of person. So, I went to use Visual Studio and to show them that, it's not ancient. It didn't, it's just like the other languages. We can run it off of here and it still works. And I ran it off of clips too. And they had them do things in class, and it's pretty interesting. But the thing that I really like about COBOL that really opens it up, it was not just, it was created by, a woman. It was more for a women's field, but we put expertise on things. And I like it because, yes, it's a learning platform that you have to, essentially learn and learn and learn and different things. You learn something new every day. But it's something about when you start understanding it, the uniqueness in it, the time that it took. You can see the passion that went in behind it. And it's something about women. We can take something and just make it amazing at any time. So, it's not nothing against men. We really love you, but it's a platform, and it's, understanding it and getting your students to understand. Now, it is an increased amount of women in the area. It's pretty interesting to see the women are going into COBOL. And as far as jobs wise, working with academia and different companies will increase that size. We do have a lot more. I noticed schools that came back to the area of mainframe teaching COBOL. I was doing some research. I've seen that a lot of schools are coming back that way. Yes, mainframe COBOL is not dead. It's not going anywhere. So, and when you learn that, it took a long time for people to realize, but money will bring you back. You can't run everything on the cloud. It costs, and people didn't understand the percentages of cost. I was reading something, and it was just so cute. They didn't know that it's a certain amount of space, and you pay for the space that you put up there, right?
Right.
And one thing I did learn about when you talk about, and I'm not going to call it mainframe no more. I'm going to call it the Z because they're going to get on me. The Z. The one thing I learned about it, it doesn't change, but the system, you can last forever. And when I went to IBM, that was the biggest thing, and they were showing me how they do the test to kind of test the system to make sure that in any kind of storm or hurricane that the mainframe will still exists. And I was like, this is pretty neat. I mean, this is amazing because you need something that's going to still function. When our money situations, it becomes a problem now. And I know you could contest of this. If they deal with financial in our banks, and it deals with all of our transactions, our data and stuff. I don't know about you, but I know that as a woman, I am like drama about stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, the security behind it is so amazing. The platform that I just don't understand how you go from 1960 and can still use the same code from one area to on the newer systems. And that just kind of made me think, like, I need to stop writing bad Java, just writing it for that system in that time, right?
Well, I think that's a big part of why we did a recent survey, and we found, what is the number? 30 billion lines of code in COBOL still exists. It's growing. It's massive how much COBOL code is out there. And it's because you don't have to change it. You're not forced to rewrite it every few years because you upgraded your operating system or you upgraded your hardware. So let me ask you this, Gina, as you're working with students, and Christie, as Melissa, when you were a student yourself and you had colleagues, what is it about COBOL that you see surprises people, that surprises young people first learning about it?
For me, like I had peers react who weren't like, I had friends who were programmers outside of the program I was in, and they were like, "You have a mainframe class this semester? What? Why? They're still writing dinosaurs? I thought they got rid of all of that. Isn't it all Java now?" And I was like, well, no, apparently not. All the banks are doing it, all the airlines are doing it, and they're still going to be doing it probably 40 years from now. It'll still be mostly COBOL because it works. And but for me personally, as a student, the thing that really surprised me when I first started learning it, because I did most of the COBOL programming I did was using a green screen terminal emulator. And it's really strict about the columns and the lines. And coming from other languages like Python, where maybe the white space is strict, or JavaScript, where they're just like, you know what, do whatever you want with your brackets, put a semicolon, I don't care, do anything. And then COBOL's over here being like, better be perfect.
Yeah, it's very precise, right?
But it's great because you never have, I never looked at any COBOL where I was just like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
Most of the time when I looked at it, I was just like, okay, why are they doing this? But it was still clear, which functions were which areas were which. Everything had this great top down. And, you'd see the occasional comment as opposed to Java I wrote, which had comment almost every, 4 lines, because, you'd have this giant object, and people would be like, oh, what is that? And it's like, well, it's this, and this.
Right.
And COBOL just doesn't do that. It's great. But I had, tons of people being like, telling me I was wasting my time. And I was just like, no, it's so prevalent. It's everywhere. Even if I never write any new COBOL code, you'll still need people who will be able to interact with it and know what they're doing.
Right. Gina, what is surprising to your students?
It's a screen. Getting past the screen, because I like to go to the old-fashioned but wait and show them use the screen that I'm not scared of. We grew up on, and so what I do is I take it as a new approach now, and I just kind of I start up a game or something that looks like it, right? This used to be the game, and they're like, no, it hadn't. This is how the game got created. But it's an underlying joke. But the students, one thing about it, they are excited. It's a little different for them at the beginning, and it is strict. It's straight, write it this way. No, stop. Don't try to do this. Don't add this. Just write it straight. But one thing I learned looking at the students' faces, if you have me in programming, I teach Java and all that. But if you have me in programming class, I make you comment like no other. And they was like, no documentation. I don't have to put any comments. It's so easy to read. And I was like, yes, you don't have to put any comments. It's fine. And so, it's the excitement. So they're excited about not putting comments in. So it's forcing them to learn indirectly because, but the biggest draw of it is the way it's written and understanding it. They're so used to writing it. And sometimes I look at a screen that might have some Python or Java up there. It's not working. It's not going to work. What's that? And it's the funniest thing because sometimes when you're taking, and I noticed that I have some students are taking 2 different languages at the same time. And I noticed that they spill in different things from one class to another, right? Yeah. And so they might be learning like some while and doing some while statements, and then they come into here and just type it. So it's just, I just laugh and I'm like, okay, this would work if we was in Python, right? But this is not Python. And they say, oh no, the wrong class. And so it's pretty interesting when you see that students are taking different languages at the same time. And that was kind of awkward to me too. Like you taking, because I got to graduate, we get different walks of life, transfer students, and they've taken different classes. And it's so funny to see that they're taking like the 2nd or 3rd level of a class, and it's intertwining, and they take COBOL back to Python. So they might turn in some COBOL on a Python test or something, and the teacher's like, "What is this?" And so it's pretty interesting.
That is hilarious. I never thought about having to learn two languages at the same time, but I can imagine that's really confusing. All right,
It
I'll
is.
tell you what surprised me the most. Now that I work for a company that's famous for their COBOL, they showed me how you can take those legacy haven't been updated in forever, and with a relatively small amount of work, turn them into microservices in containers on a cloud. The exact same COBOL
What?
doing microservices in a container on the cloud. Yes.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
more of the
Yeah.
modernization piece, right? Misty,
Yeah.
that's more of the modernization piece that
That's
they're
modernization. Well, I mean, modernization is a word that a lot of people get really confused about in this space right
okay.
now because they define it as being modernization is this technology or this, DevOps is modernization.
Mhm.
But we define or I define modernization as taking your IT system, your IT processes, your applications, your infrastructure, and doing whatever you need to it to deliver the modern needs of your business. That
Mhm.
might be technology you already have. A lot of times the real issues in a business isn't that they aren't using Java, it's that because they haven't maintained their COBOL applications. And maybe it's moving off of the mainframe, but maybe it's fixing what you've already got on your mainframe and making it better suit your modern business needs. It's not one thing, it is one end goal of being able to deliver what your business needs, but how you get there is a wide variety of paths. And it's just amazing the things that COBOL can do without having to get rid of it. And people just assume it can't do, right?
Yeah, I seen that. I was reading, and I want to make sure I'm reading this right. But I was reading something about COBOL and object-oriented programming.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this is pretty neat. They got an object-oriented
Yeah.
side, so I just started. I gotta find this, and so it's amazing that they are moving to different levels and they starting to use it. Their major goal is to have you can run, it can change and adapt to any language that you use. And I think that's
Right.
pretty interesting what's going on now. And I was like, wow, this is really neat. It's not like you're getting rid of COBOL. It's like adding different languages like Python and different things that can be interpreted. It can interpret so it can run on your different platforms, but it's more of a COBOL base, right? I was
Yeah.
looking at that and I thought that was pretty interesting. Did I read that right, Misty? Just want to
You're
make sure.
absolutely right. I mean,
I'm
that's a
not
lot of
in the field. I'm in the university at the university, so I want to make
that.
sure.
I mean, my eyes have been opened. I mean, we even have the ability with some of our products to take your COBOL code and compile it and generate Java object source. I mean, object code
Stop.
out of and .NET. You can create .NET
You know,
object code out of your COBOL source code.
I
Yeah.
did read that. I did read that micro Bible. And you know what? To be honest with you, and I don't want to do a related company, but on research opportunities and the new modern things that's going on, new changes that's occurring, I do see your company's name out there a lot. Like, and I was like, wait a minute, Missy works for them, so it's
Yeah.
pretty neat to see
I,
that.
I mean,
Now,
this
Missy, I
this
have a
this
question.
webinar isn't about micro focus, so we're not
No,
supposed to
it's
be.
not. But
We're
I'm
talking
off
about
of it. But
COBOL in
it's
general.
the reason why I said it because they are covering a lot of aspects that's going on now that is related to the COBOL area that
Yeah.
people need to understand and know. So, and you work there, so
Yeah.
it's a plus that you're in the midst of learning and seeing new things being
I
made
mean,
and changed.
we'll do a shout out to some of our other favorite companies, right? IBM is doing a whole lot around modernizing the
Mhm.
mainframe, the hardware, that IT environment. Broadcom leans very heavily into modernizing the DevOps, the development process. You know, all of this is around, as I said, all of that counts as modernization. And so it's modernization is not about what you're doing as much as delivering the business modern. That's where the modern comes in, is meeting what the modern business needs.
So, Missy, I have a hard question, because when we start
Yeah.
talking about COBOL and women, and we just period learning students, bringing students into the area of COBOL, how do we create a better filtering system so we can ensure that we have pipelines built in place to get more students in the area of COBOL and meet the needs? I know that I was reading is so many career opportunities available in the space, but the problem I see that is a disconnect in the space is not a filtering system. It's not like we need them, but how are we going to get what you need as you have the schools now, and that's doing it. So how is that? Because we have Melissa on this line, and Melissa she would have been nice if something was brought out in her class where here's some opportunities, here's a partnership. So this is a problem.
I agree, Gina. Here we have Melissa, who won North America Master of the Mainframe, and she's not in a mainframe COBOL job, right?
Yeah.
So,
and the difficulty there is that when you learn COBOL, the beginner level, the starting level is abundant. You can find beginner COBOL courses everywhere. But when it comes to intermediate level, or just seeing production code, or doing even having the opportunity to do maintenance on COBOL or do bug crushing on COBOL, you don't really get that unless you're in the industry, part of the industry. And one of the only ways to kind of break in or breach the industry is to get some other COBOL, person to take you under their wing, and like apprentice under another mainframer, which is something I kind of tried to do, but due to some limitations, I wasn't able to get kind of those opportunities.
yeah.
I just wasn't in the right place at the right time. And it's unfortunate, but I don't think it's something that's completely out the window for me, or any new student, especially now that we have more programs that are starting to bring back the COBOL and starting to flush their COBOL out. Like my program, we had the mainframe course, which was mandatory. Everybody has to learn about mainframes. But the COBOL course, the programming course, was an optional. If we had more opportunities to just get people to touch COBOL or the mainframe just a little bit, I find that that's enough driving force to bring people in. Most people, when they start programming in COBOL or start interacting with the mainframe, they're like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! I love this," and they want to do it. And that's why Master the Mainframe and Z Explorer and the courses provided by IBM or Micro Focus are great. But sometimes people need that little push to really get in there, to really see that it's fun and amazing. I think these companies have the opportunity to hook in people just by doing that, just by trying to bring people in, saying, "Oh, hey, do you want to come and learn mainframe at our company?"
I did see the average age is 50. So, and so that's the average age of a COBOL mainframer. So, and I see that it's so many questions around, is people are now asking, is going to be enough COBOLers, and are going to have enough people working on the mainframe? And I know that we came here to talk about COBOL, and it's very significant. But if it's a disconnect, then we have more schools now because, at one time everybody dropped it, it left to 9 schools. And now what I was reading is about, it's about like 30 or so more, and it's moving up the chain. But how can you get since we talking about COBOL, and it's such a much needed, and it's really sad. You heard me say that it's, the average age, but, and then they're giving more money, Misty. I did see the value of the states are giving more money, so you can make 6 figures now, right? So
Yeah.
trying to understand how can we bridge that between academia. You got a student, like you said, Misty, you've been a support all these years for the students, and you still are. And you've been an advocate, and they have like all these badges and certifications. And some people are just going where they don't, that's not where their passion is. You're losing.
It's a complex problem with a lot of points, right? Let's just start at the beginning. There's awareness. The students need to know what these careers are before they take the classes. The universities will offer classes where there's student demand, even if there's jobs, but students won't sign up for the classes. It makes the universities won't offer them. So then you need to have the universities on board with a pipeline of students that are aware and interested. Then you need to have employers engaging with those campuses to try to get the students involved, to support the faculty, to support the university advisory boards. Those employers need to do things with higher. Have 5 years of COBOL experience or 20 years, right? I get contacted all the time by people looking for COBOL skills, and they say, I need someone who's already in the United States with 20 years of experience in COBOL. And I'm like, listen, there's like maybe a dozen of those people, and everybody wants that one person. You need to build a pipeline with regards to the average age of COBOL programmer. I find it really interesting that number has not changed for 15 years. Now people are getting older. So what does that mean? Newer people coming in, to the point where it's keeping that number, that average, still around 40 to 50. My personal theory, and I don't know this for a fact, is that you have a significant number of people that start their career in something else and then transition into COBOL and mainframe. So they're not coming straight out of college. That's my theory. I don't have any data to support that. I think it's a mix. I think that companies really need to do a mix. And it comes down to, when it comes to Java programmers or cloud developers or whatever, it's a many to many matching scenario, right? There's many, many people with those skills, and there's many, many jobs. These jobs, there's fewer of them, and there are fewer people graduating. So it's harder to find that pairing, especially when you add geographical preferences, schedule preferences, employer preferences. Employers don't help themselves when they limit themselves to only college graduates with a 4-year degree. There's some really amazing talent coming out of community colleges, for example, and their corporate rules won't let them even talk to them. So there's a lot of pieces here that need to be updated. I'm encouraged by the current employment climate, because there's nothing like making people consider new ways of doing things as being on a burning platform, as they say. So the employment environment is burning.
Yes.
There's a sense of urgency going on right now. And I think that, with the ecosystem that we have and the partnership that we have between Micro Focus and IBM and Broadcom and BMC and all of these companies, I think that we now have the momentum and the sense of urgency in the industry that we can really make some real things happen. So I'm excited.
And I didn't want to take you off COBOL, but that is like a big piece of COBOL right now.
COBOL is a big piece of it.
It's a big piece. And if when I look at the average age, and like you said, Missy, they might be just starting off, because a lot of them do have, it's intimidated, 20 years experience or different experience, but you know, or the stipulations, like you said, it's got a change has to be occur, and that's between academia and employers and the university as a whole. They really don't have too much. As if you work with that employer, it'll change some things, and it's just a relationship. I really appreciate all the companies that bring in supplies. So when we talk about hands-on opportunities, we do work with IBM. We do work with companies that actually sponsor and things to help our students with COBOL. So these are some great paths and avenues. So when you ask me questions, Misty, that's one of the things. If I don't do COBOL for a living, that's not something I ever did for a living. So it's great when you have the sites, the platforms that you have hands-on for your students. So they can, and then the competition helps a lot. And people don't understand the value of that competition. It's a lot of work that you do bringing in COBOL and all the areas, JCLs. So, you know, even teaching students sometimes, and you look at JCLs and you try to incorporate the COBOL into it, and they're looking confused as ever. But it's something about going into the Z system, and it used to be called the master mainframe. It's something about them going into there and start doing it and seeing their faces light up and understand it. Well, you understand it now? What made you understand it now? Oh, it's the second time. You know, it's kind of like this is a game and I got to win. So, you know, it's good that, you know,
now it's fun.
Things and avenues to academia. So you are offering things to academia that really helps. And Melissa, when you were in school, did y'all have things that really helped you through the program and understand your class well? Or is it some things that you did in there as far as COBOL and the learning of the language? What are some things that y'all did in there that was really beneficial to you?
So the professor I had for my COBOL course, he was a consultant for the Bank of Montreal, doing maintaining local mainframes. So he was actually, you know, getting the chance to, you know, be currently directly working with mainframes. But to him, he really liked to just kind of joke around about things and you know, keep it not too serious. He found that there's kind of this weird hostility with like old school programmers where they're like, oh, you don't know that? Get out of here. But he was just like, that's such a terrible thing to do to somebody who's just trying to, you know, become a part of it. Like, you have to be welcoming to newcomers. But some of the kind of fun projects he had us do were, he was like, yeah, we can change data in files, and we can make a transaction system, but let's not do that. Let's not do that. It's boring. Let's make a game with COBOL. So our final project for our programming class was to make one of those kind of old-fashioned text adventure games, all in COBOL.
Nice. Oh, I love it.
And we had to manipulate data coming in. We had to the one I wrote printed off, like after you died in the game, it would print off how far you got and what was in your backpack as a report afterwards. And it was just kind of like a silly little thing, but it made you a lot of the problems that you see in COBOL, like a lot of things you need to solve, you know, transactions and those kind of things. It's all kind of the same problem, and you all kind of do the same thing. So in this case, we had to kind of like really think out of the box to, you know, let's display text on the screen. Let's do calculations for damage. I actually set mine up to, originally we had like a set map that the player could go through, but I set mine up that it would randomize the rooms and learning how to do proper randomization in COBOL, which I could do easily in Python, but in COBOL, because you don't have libraries to do stuff. You have to invent the wheel every time, and it really gave us the opportunity to, like, from that knowledge, like, I know this is how to do this. And COBOL is one of those languages where I don't really need to look at the documentation, because I've done things enough times that it's just there. I don't need to look anything up. And so that was kind of like the really fun, interesting project. And he also was pretty against using modern IDEs to program in. So we did everything terminal emulator, green screen.
Wow.
And so I actually find it a little awkward using modern IDEs to program COBOL in, because it doesn't feel right. You get used to a certain way of doing things, and you're like, it should be all black with green text.
I'm finding this very funny, Melissa.
I do actually now. I don't mind using a Visual Studio Code to do COBOL in, since now you have lots of nice people have made lots of nice extensions for COBOL. And I think that's in part that, there was a little pocket of time where people were not thinking about COBOL. And then the pandemic happened. And then we kind of got thrown under the bus at one point, where they were just like, the reason this is all held up is because of the COBOL. And what it really was is that they didn't do their job, which was maintain their system.
Exactly.
And then it sort of did us a favor, and then also an injustice, where it was just like, COBOL, it's your fault, but hey, we need COBOL programmers. People better start funding this, because we don't have any.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, we're running out of time, so I want to make sure I give you guys a chance to make one last comment, and that is, what is one thing that you'd like our audience to really understand when it comes to the next generation in COBOL? What is it? You're speaking to the community now. Is there something that you would like them to know, or you'd like them to do? What is your parting words here?
Okay.
Oh, so much pressure.
My parting words is I am about academia and about the students and the growth, and seeing students move into the areas of need. And I do want to see a big surge of our students go into the areas of COBOL. We know it's a lot of attractive jobs out there. Java is there. Everybody has Java, Google, and all the nice flashy companies, but it's great. But it's always great to see students have a diverse background and join. I want to see a big swift increase of getting more African Americans in the area of COBOL. It was, as me doing my research, it was a little disheartening to see how the numbers are not there. And when we look at women, the increase, but we need more women, promotion of more women, and actually more. I seen it was 74% of men in the area of COBOL right now, not in area of mainframe, period. So, the need and the pushes, the schools are doing it now, and they're actually producing students. That's amazing. And so if I had to say these last words to you, the students actually know. So if you can just bend back and stop saying 20 years or 10 years and take some of the students and teach them, the biggest thing we know that that average age, they got to go home sooner or later, right? So, pair the new with the young, and all of them. I said the new with the young because I would never call them elderly. And then have them grow that way. You're missing out on a lot of amazing students, and it's no need that we should have not, Miss Melissa. Melissa is a prime example. I even have students that go to the third and finish the third levels and completing, and nobody's just looking at them. Nobody's grabbing them, and they're going off to other places where they really love, and that's their passion. So COBOL is not going nowhere. I see the amazing things that's happening, and it's a big need. So for me, I love it. I love to see the students' face when they learn it, and I love to see that the amazing things that they're doing in class. And I am going to take that game from what she did, that idea, because it does remind me every time I use COBOL, it reminds me of the game that I played when I was young. So it just kind of, for some reason, it's like, I need to program this. And so, you know, this is a great time to have this conversation. Everybody's jumping on the bandwagon of giving more money to COBOL. Everybody wants to, increase the amount of COBOL, experience for the mainframe. But this is going to be wonderful, because this is my plea to say we're here.
Yes. I will say your students have always impressed me. They have such a passion and a focus. I mean, that's what I at A&T is not a single one of them is going there because they didn't have anything better to do, right? Or they just felt like, oh, this is automatically the next step. They're all there because they want to be there, because they want to pursue this career. And that's exactly the kind of person you want to hire. So definitely recruit at
NCAA. One student went to Wells Fargo. She's a mainframer now.
So proud.
I'm so proud.
All right, Melissa, your parting words.
So all I can say is, like, as a student and two students who are coming into this, you're going to get into lots of computer science courses and a lot of courses that just teach, Java and Python and stuff like that. But give mainframe a chance. It's wonderful. The systems are impressive and capable of amazing things. COBOL is a great language to program in. It feels great. It doesn't look great. Don't worry about that. It's got an impressive historical background, and giving a chance learning it, even if you never use it again, like, you should just learn it. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to benefit you. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. And I think, coming into the world, even if you don't start in mainframe, 10 years later, maybe your boss comes over to you and says, hey, you know stuff about the mainframe, right? We've got a mainframe in the back. You want to do stuff with it? And it's going to be great. You're going to be like, yeah, play on the mainframe. So really my advice to people is just do it. It's fun. There's lots of great ways to try it. Lots of great courses online, lots of great programs at schools now. And I'm an advocate for the Z Explorer with IBM and stuff like that. It's great. It's a great way to get introduced to it.
And it's so much fun, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you so much, Gina. I had a lot of fun with this conversation. I hope you did too. And thank you to our audience for joining us. And I want to give a shout out to my producer, Marcela Marugo. For all of you watching today, if you have any feedback for us or suggestions for future episodes, you can contact Marcela. She is happy to take your calls and your emails, and we'll be scheduling more of these episodes in the future. Thank you for joining us.